Hello and a very warm welcome to ETHR and SAP present the voice of leadership, FutureScape HR, where technology powers business success. I'm your host, Devina Lasson, and through this series, we are going to explore how HR isn't just about managing people, it's about using technology to drive real business results. From faster hiring to higher retention and smart workforce planning, we'll explore how innovation is transforming the way that organizations succeed. To deep dive into this and so much more, it's my pleasure to welcome a very esteemed panel of guests today. We have joining us Priti Kataria, CHRO Birlasoft, and James Thomas, Vice President and Head, SAP SuccessFactors India. All right, Priti, James, a very warm welcome to both of you. Thank you so much for chatting with us today. Such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you, same here.
Thank you. And so of course, we're here to talk about such an interesting topic, right? We're discussing the future of leadership, what that looks like. We're going to get great perspective, of course, from the HR perspective. And James, love to get your input on all the technology that's fueling this ultimately. But before we start, I do have a request for each of you. Let's start with a small rapid fire round. Yeah, so we'll just go quick answer from each one. I think these are questions that should be very interesting for both of you. Priti, so ladies first, what is one workplace ritual that you would introduce in every company if you could?
To stop reaching out to people after 6 p.m. on a Friday evening across any time zone.
Nice. James, the strangest but most useful piece of leadership advice that you have received?
Yeah, so when you hire for your leadership team, don't just go for your ex-colleagues and people only from your network.
Yes, wonderful. Priti, the most underrated metric in measuring employee happiness?
What struck me is sometimes, discretionary effort, which usually is not visible, but when it is not there, is people stop noticing it.
Yes.
And at times that just drifts into quiet quitting.
Yes, wonderful. James, if HR tech had a soundtrack, what would it be?
Yeah, that's interesting. I would say liquid funk.
Yeah.
Merging the past and present, rhythm, melody into the music of HR.
Yes, wonderful. Really gives an idea of how you approach this entire function. Wonderful. Priti, the last big work decision that you have made based on your gut and intuition and not data?
I would not say no data at all, but yes, at the end of the day, I took a call on gut on two situations. One, of course, hiring a person as well as also exiting a person.
Yes.
So I did not exit a person while the data was showing that probably the trends were there in that direction, and hiring a person where the data probably was not so much in favor of that individual. And I can sleep peacefully today because both have worked out well.
Wonderful. Yeah, human touch, so important there. James, what is the one thing that you think AI will never be able to replace when it comes to a human function?
Priti just answered gut or intuition, possibly.
Absolutely wonderful. And Priti, a tech tool that you wish existed but doesn't yet exist?
So I have a different point there. I would say I think most of the areas we've had technology intrusion happening.
Yes.
Maybe we should make some areas wherein we just leave it to the human for some time.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and final one for you, James. If you could travel 10 years ahead, what would be the first HR innovation that you'd look forward to?
Automated promotions with no manual intervention.
And no escalations.
One of the more painful parts of the process, definitely. All right, thank you so much, both of you. That was a very exciting note to start the entire conversation. So, let's deep dive a little bit more now. Priti, for you, Birlasoft, of course, operates in a very competitive tech talent market, right?
Yep.
So what would you say are some of the HR tech strengths that you're really harnessing to get the employee brand name out there to ultimately attract the best of talent?
Sure. I think it's a pretty broad topic you brought on the table. But honestly, today, people are going beyond compensation, beyond just the pull of an organization. I think it is more about their individual purpose aligning with the larger organization, what the organization is up to. So there you can't be somebody who's not aligned to changing times or changing technologies and not embracing them.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, a campus person today looks up to whether I can learn, whether I'm going to embrace disruptive projects. And that whole experience piece, I think that's very important for us is the employee experience. So, right from a probable employee to how that individual gets hired, evaluated seamlessly,
yes,
without glitches, without snags, to the onboarding, which has to be seamless. And of course, then onto the job. And in the IT industry, if you are not IT savvy to make this entire employee experience journey, I think seamless, very consistent, very transparent. People are able to predict that, okay, fine, if I have done this, if I have this gap, this is my path, and I get onto that learning journey or career journey. I think there's a lot of trust you build and
Absolutely.
credibility, and that probably enables you in pulling people towards yourself, is what I
Yes.
would say. Again, it's a complete 9 yards. It starts with even reading about the organization's purpose to coming in and experiencing all the stages of your career life at the end of the day. So
Wonderful. Yeah, truly some of the keys to attracting the top most talent in the
yes.
country. Yeah, wonderful. James, to get you in on this, your perspective, of course, is very interesting because you work with a cross section of organizations, geographies. So, can you give us a little bit of insight on what you are observing as one of the biggest pitfalls that various organizations face when it comes to really implementing and getting the most out of the HR tech offerings?
Yeah, so I think Preeti alluded to this seamlessness to employee
Yes.
experiences and processes. And one of the things, when you look at technology, if you have to drive that kind of an interconnected, seamless experience, you need to have a platform view to processes or a
Absolutely.
harmonized view to processes. A lot of times, organizations decide to go best of breed or siloed in the way they address each process or sub process,
Yes.
and then struggle to connect them. So
Mm.
the seamlessness that Preeti just alluded to just doesn't happen
Yeah.
from a technology enabling that process perspective. So that is one key area in the talent management or talent life cycle that I see organizations struggle with over a
Okay.
period of time.
Yeah.
The second area is how good your data is.
Absolutely.
Are you really having a single source of 360-degree view on your people, which is harnessed across the organization? A lot of times organizations struggle with that too.
Yes.
I'll have one set of people data for payroll, I'll have another for recruiting, another for core, etc., etc. So bringing that data integrity to your foundational view on people is another area where organizations at times struggle with in terms of the single source of truth.
Yeah.
The third area I see is from a tech adoption consumption perspective, you need to stay with this as a journey.
Yes.
So if you try for too much perfection in the way technology needs to be consumed, in the way HR or people need to be managed, as you know, people are a complicated piece. There is a very objective side to them. There is also a very subjective or a very unknown element to a human being in terms of, so harnessing the best out of human beings requires technology to be in a balance in the way you harness it for people. So if you overdo everything into tech and customize things into a tech platform beyond what is needed, you're overcomplicating people experiences and you drive too much of overheads into the organization from a technology perspective, which may not really help in the way people will contribute or drive the growth of the organization. So these are broadly 2 or 3 areas I can highlight where organizations at times miss and then struggle through rewiring and reconnecting these things over a period of time. It also costs money, right? So it's a matter of money and time both impacting these aspects.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to deep dive into a lot of this. So thanks for setting that foundation. Preeti, so of course, ultimately what we're talking about here today is vast amounts of digital transformation, right? As James is talking about all the layers of tech that really comes in. In some areas, it's a struggle. In some areas, more seamless. But when there is such a transformation, of course, the teams, the workforce need to be ready for it. Right? What would you say it really takes to make sure that your workforce is future ready, skill trained, tech enabled? What are some of the steps here that are necessary?
I think first is baselining, where you stand today. And, as an organization, the markets in which you operate, the kind of customers you're addressing, and what's going to be their needs.
Yeah.
So how proactive you are about their needs and just checking as to what is your capability today. And then balancing the complete capability building and the capacity building. I think these are two important pillars because if I don't have the right capacity and the right capability, I don't think you can be ready for the future. And here I would say it is not only technology, right? While the technology is changing, your talent has to be ready for what your customer needs. I think the leadership development, the sales piece of it. So I think all three pillars have to go hand in hand.
Yes.
One is what are you going to offer? Then how do you offer? And third is the people who are being managed, by this bunch of people who are going to deliver for your customers. So for us, it is all about the complete, capability building. So whether it is tech capability, whether it is delivery capability, whether it is sales capability, and the whole call out to the platforms which you leverage, right? So which platforms are relevant for which capability building? I think it's a call you take. You invest in certain platforms so that people are skill ready. So baselining where the gap is, we have that skill folio for, in our case, wherein people do take those tests, they get endorsement by the managers where they stand, and then a complete skill-based learning path.
Yes.
That whether you're a foundational level to an expert level, so that gets you ready to what you deliver. Second is my leadership has to be more equipped. It can't run with the old ways of handling talent because the talent is very different today. So how they are being made ready and relevant for the talent which you are handling. And last but not the least is the sales, so what you have, how do you go back and sell it to the customer?
Yes.
Also requires a very different capability of selling today, which has to have an element of depth and not just, sales training, but your capability and the competence in the domain you go and sell. So they also need a lot of unlearning from the pure play sales skill to the depth and the content selling which they are doing. So for us, it's a complete pillar by pillar capability building so that you have the right capacity on the demand which is now coming in the market.
Absolutely. Each and every aspect, each sector needs to be focused on differently. Yeah, wonderful. And, James, so no conversation on the impact of HR tech, the future of HR can be had without understanding a bit more about the ROI, right? Because ultimately you are looking at a scenario where organizations need to see that business impact, right? It's not only connected to the HR KPIs and so on. So how do you see that all this, the new tools that we are talking about are ultimately contributing to the business aspect in each organization?
Yeah, so I think just to take from where Priti highlighted, the entire pillars that she talked about, how each of those pieces need to come together, I would call it the talent supply chain.
Yes.
Right.
Nice.
So as much as we talk about supply chains in manufacturing or other sectors, I think the supply chain dimension is becoming extremely critical on the people and talent side.
Absolutely.
Because there is a fair bit of disruption happening both on the supply side as well as the demand side. So how technology platforms today are really trying to address this is to bring in how seamlessly can the supply side be looked at,
Yes.
right? For example, getting the right people for the right job at the right time. There is a lot of emphasis today that's happening on internal fulfillment, for example.
Yes.
Right? Now, while we say external hiring has its challenges and there is a whole thing, a lot of organizations are not really geared to address internal fulfilling in the best possible way. So, for example, when Priti mentioned that the competency levels need to be assessed from a level 1 to a level 5, for example, now it is not just at the learning level that it need to be assessed. There has to be the same seamlessness that has to come in the way a performance of an employee is viewed, to how learning recommendations happen to that employee, to what that employee aspires for or where they want to move their careers to, and all of that synthesizing itself into the core talent profiles or people profile that the organization has.
Right.
So it is kind of a 360 degree when it comes to looking at the talent life cycle in conjunction with the core people foundation on how much of visibility we have in a connected, supported, empowered way to manage people. So there is a big disruptive shift happening across the layers. If you look at the people foundation layer or the talent management layer or the employee experience layer or even today the so-called AI or the intelligence layer, there is a certain disruption happening in the way systems need to come in and facilitate this in a interconnected, supported, empowered way for the employee, for managers and for leaders like Priti in terms of how they are able to harness the best of the people they have.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Priti, love to get you in on this.
Yeah, no, I think a very relevant point, and somewhere it also leads to that, in terms of buy versus build, right? Because like he said, it's an internal fulfillment versus what is your tenacity and capacity to also bring in talent from outside, and what is that right balance?
Absolutely.
So I think in disruption, today every organization is struggling, right? Not everybody has something which is ready to be utilized. And it's not that what you get in the market is also already there, because everybody is coming up to speed at the same time. Some people have some edge here and there. And that is a differential you bring to the table for a customer or for your own talent in the organization, that how forward looking you have been to preempt it, get ready for it. And I think nothing beats getting your existing people up to speed in terms of
Absolutely.
learning curve, in terms of stickiness, in terms of, aspiration, and they becoming your ambassadors, to your first question of attracting more talent
Yes.
into the organization. So for us, success stories is also about, if people are 60-70% ready, do I give that opportunity to that individual? Right? So there is an assessment, there is a system, there is a mapping of the gap you have, and to what extent I build that gap so that I set up this individual for success, and build my engine of succession planning through system, through data, as well as the individual leadership intervention to get this person up and create more stories of people moving up rather than people losing in the
Yes.
middle levels of the organization.
Absolutely. And as you just mentioned, the data, what role would you say that the analytics aspect, right, the HR analytics is playing here to make sure that that alignment, like you're saying, of your internal teams to the ultimate business goals,
Correct.
that alignment is taking place?
See, data could be very basic, could be as basic to start with as knowing your organization itself, right?
True.
Your demographics, and some of the problems or symptoms could be also arising from there. Like if we look at something as basic as, what is the tenure of folks in the organization? Today, 60-70% people could be less than 2-3 years. People who've actually joined maybe during COVID, post-COVID, and working in the hybrid manner, right? Some of the symptoms of social engagement or organization stickiness also comes from there because we are working hybrid.
Sure.
So I'm saying studying your data could be as basic as knowing your demographics, to as basic as knowing your engagement scores, to even the day-to-day pulse, right, of how people are feeling on the floor in their projects, or even customer feedback linked to a particular account. Is there a specific technology where we have a gap of talent? I think it throws up signals. I'm not saying it is the end of it, but you are at least able to pick up signals where the noise is coming or something great is happening. So you go and pick that up and do more of it. So for me, it's about knowing employees or knowing the organization. It's about the employee experience itself in terms of scores. I think sometimes it also helps in areas of proactive well-being, right? When you go and gauge some elements, you get signals that, and I'm not saying all tools can replace human touch or conversations, but they just aid you that here are some things which are not moving in the right direction from a matrix perspective. And you start doing interventions proactively, whether it is, and today we can't but ignore, and we have to accept that it is also an era where there is a maximum mental well-being issues across, right? At various stages, people who are fresh from college, to managers who could be burning out, to people who are having and battling multiple things on personal as well as professional front. So as a very inclusive, as a very well-intentioned organization, if you pick up these signals and create that atmosphere in the organization of very, very customized, specific interventions, I think it also helps the larger, stickiness or employee well-being in the organization. So I see it, and all of this actually leads to employees in an IT organization which create magic for the customer. So if they are happy, they are equipped, they know where to go for what, and you are helping them navigate the organization system, I think you're probably in the right direction. And none of it can be done manually, especially in the way we are all organized, hybrid working, dispersed workforce, and almost 4 or 5 generations now in the organization, right? Some of them not tech savvy to somebody who only works through technology, right? So you have those digital citizens around. So I think you need that. You can't be away from data.
Yes, absolutely.
Just to add to that, see, where technology is coming in is, to what Priti said, for example, knowing your organization, right? And it has to radiate across the business. So technology is enabling today for multiple KPIs, whether it is a people-related KPI to a business-related KPI, to interconnect. So for example, let's say time to billability is a classical IT services KPI, right? How much, if sales gets in a project, how soon you fulfill it to get it billable. Now that calls for a talent supply demand balance, right? Which is all about people, which is all about the right skills. So all this today, technology is coming in to give those insights, visibility for decision makers to really effectively manage within the constraints, within the limitations, within the resources, how best to optimize time to billability so that the business KPI is met better than otherwise.
True.
I'm just giving you one example of a business KPI which comes from a people dimension, moves in on the business side. There are innumerable number of such KPIs
and I
that we
think,
can really roll up.
This industry will have all of them actually, if you ask me, right from, like he said, fulfillment, utilization, bench management, build versus buy, and which skills you have the next level of platform upgradation happening. I think you can't ignore it. So, it just enables the business, if you ask me, because the delivery managers, the project managers, the talent supply chain, even the sales, right? They are able to give you that kind of a roadmap that, the ramp up time is 6 weeks or the ramp down time is 6 weeks. Even the ramping down of projects data actually throws up available talent for the other projects. And today, any new project wants a lot of chunk which is homegrown, which is tenured talent in the organization, in that skill, in that domain. So if you have a visibility of projects ramping down, which are coming to a closure, you actually divert the talent.
Yeah.
And you don't lose talent with anxiety as to what happens to me next, because you proactively plan it, you channelize it. And of course, you will have some exceptions here and there, but end of the day, it just builds your proactive, planning of talent mobilization also.
Yeah, wonderful.
I'll just add an example there, which we keep quoting. I mean, in the AI world, for example, let's say somebody who's going on maternity leave, right? Now, she's going to come back after 6 months, right? She may be very anxious before she goes on maternity. What happens to me when I comes back?
Yes.
Now, today, AI, in terms of HR policies or what is available in the system, there are technology which can enable a person like that to really figure out what's going to happen to me after 6 months.
Yeah.
It gives so much of relief. So a lot of
Correct.
these things that Priti mentioned, for example, in terms of the mental well-being and some of these anxieties and aspirations, or even other constraints, personal or professional, that people go through, you need, it is not just about an organizational KPI or a business KPI driving performance and productivity alone. At times, you may need to give space to a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's a combination of who wants to be on the treadmill or the 100-meter sprint, who may want to run a 5,000-meter race. Somebody may be wanting to run a marathon for some time.
Sure.
So you need to balance the organization across these different speeds in the way you bring people together, staff them into projects, or provide that flexibility and that agility, or what I call hyper-personalization to how we manage people today. So it's quite fascinating to see how technology is really coming in on the softer aspects of people.
Wow, fascinating. Yeah, truly so well said, both of you. Thank you for that. Just to circle back a little bit to one of the original opening comments from each of you, when it comes especially, let's say, to AI, how much is too much? Right? Because we did speak about how the human touch is so important, let's say, especially in aspects like decision making, right? So James, in your experience and when you work with organizations, how do you help to draw that balance between the technology, AI especially, and of course human touch and human intervention?
Yeah, so it's a tricky one for sure, right? Even in our normal decision making, there is so much of bias each of us come with. Not intentional at times, maybe intentional at times, right? Now, when you really put it into a tool and say that you're training the tool for it, so how do you inherently avoid that bias is quite a bit. So my view to organizations, or what we discuss, is you need to be very prudent with picking the use cases. You can't get very fanciful with saying, okay, here are 200 things out there, let me just start placing right in. So you need to have, again, to the point that I said, these are all journeys. We need to take it as journeys and take the firm foundational building blocks to start with of how relevant, responsible, and reliable you are with the use cases that you pick. Get that in, get it adopted in the organization, see how it evolves, and then build from there. I think these days, at the end of the day, there is always a herd motion, right? Somebody else is doing it. I cannot be left behind. The CEO comes and tells Priti, come on, how many use cases on HR do you have? So Priti is like, come on, guys, I want a dozen by next month, right? So I think we need to just step back a little, in my view. Currently, there is too much of that anxiety in the market and in customers, I find. Saying, James, how many AI use cases do you have? I'm like, you haven't even adopted one. Why do you need 200? So I think we need to temper this overexcitement There are two sides. The jury is still out, but
Yes.
my view to really, I mean, it's got to be there.
Yeah.
It has definite benefits in certain dimensions, but there is a lot of prudence that is needed to pick up the relevant, reliable, and responsible AI use cases
Yeah.
and absorb any such wonderful technology in a structured, methodical manner to organizations in a journey
Yeah.
would be my submission.
Absolutely, because it's also new, right? We actually don't know
Yeah.
where a lot of these tools, where a lot of the tech is going to lead us, what the actual outcome is going to be. So absolutely, it's a time of discovery probably for everyone here. Preeti, as you were, of course, talking about how ultimately so important that every employee is happy, thriving. Like you so rightly said, we are living in an era where the stresses, from mental stress, professional stress is probably at a peak. How do you manage this when it comes to the hybrid work from home environments? Again, is tech playing a big role here? How do you get that churn also going smoothly?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest fallout, I would say, of COVID.
Yeah.
The social capital, I think, went all-time low.
Yes.
And we did a kind of a study in the organization, to really figure it out. And it was low because I think people do not have any connections. There's no scope of any ladders wherein people one level above, or building your bridges, or knowing people as friends in your ecosystem. I think it is just about task groups, and which is where I think to some extent technology has helped, because there's only so much you can do by pushing people to work. There has to be a kind of a pull factor. So somewhere we've also said that certain meetings which you have to do in person, you will not use technology.
Yes.
Right, because otherwise having this hybrid meetings, either the people in the room are not able to contribute, or people who are there online are not there.
Yes.
So technology has helped, I would say, in terms of reaching out to people, building a lot more connections. But what we have been also consciously encouraging, and which is where I want to bring that balance, of you can't take away the connections.
Absolutely.
You can't take away the one-on-one conversation. So I think there's a lot of nudge to managers, given that you're having employee base which is not 4-5 years old in the organization today. So they need to know the ecosystem, they need to soak themselves in the culture, and that cannot be done without in-person conversations, small group, listening lounges as we call them, or even sharing sessions,
Nice.
wherein something good is happening somewhere else, or really getting to know what is happening beyond my project,
Yes.
beyond my account, beyond my vertical. So where is the organization headed? Where is my vertical headed, or where is my account there? So that you really know, where do I influence in this large ecosystem? Because we have been so confined to that.
Absolutely.
In fact, we did a study, and that statement stuck with me. Was the person said, I don't know the organization, I work for my laptop. So I mean, that was a kind of a shocker, that listen,
Yes.
there is no identity beyond the laptop. So how do you break and connect with that individual?
Sure.
And that is one reason today, because you don't have anchors in the organization. Because of the sheer, extreme effect of having done remote working. So it comes with its plus. I don't deny the flexibility. I don't deny, the kind of choices people can make of coming 3 days or 4 days. But doing something, too much comes with its own challenges. And I think that is the challenge today the entire industry is facing, of how to get people more and more back to work. Some have taken strong actions. It's probably not gone down too well in some pockets.
Yeah.
Some of us are struggling to still maintain the balance, that you give flexibility, but you also nudge people to come, interact, connect. And technology is getting leveraged. I'm not denying it, because people are all over the place globally. But this is one area of building social capital which cannot be done just by pure technology.
Absolutely.
While it could be referred, referenced, used, and leveraged, but you got to have that human intervention here if you want employees to be sticky with the organization, with a sense of connectedness.
Absolutely.
So that's a big piece out there. I think we are all grappling.
Yeah.
We haven't cracked it all yet. And I think you need a lot more pull from the organization to get people feeling connected, that they belong here, it matters to them here, and they are making a difference for themselves, while coming back in numbers, connecting with people. So you have a friend at work, I strongly believe, is a huge anchor in terms of you making career decisions.
Absolutely.
So,
I'm curious, anything specific that has worked for you, your organization?
I think very conscious conversations, we call them slow conversations, which is not like I pick up the phone and say, oh, what happened to that deal? What happened to that number? We said, cut that out. These are very conscious, slow conversations wherein you check in, with your people. I mean, these are one-on-ones, and some of them are group listening lounges,
Wow.
wherein you actually sit in person. And these are not recorded meetings, and this is more about, okay, what's going on, whether it's in your life, in your family, in your ecosystem. And some of it you get signals, okay, this guy or this individual is having something else going on, because that you can't pick up on the
Right.
screen.
Absolutely.
How much ever you try technology, it doesn't give you there. So
Absolutely.
that is one. Secondly, I think what we've been encouraging is joinings in person. We have done away with virtual joinings. We've done away with virtual interviews now. At least 1 or 2 rounds have to be in person,
Nice.
because I could only see this much of a person. So, not that one is getting into, physical appearances,
No.
but I think there is some kind of, like you said, the decisions on gut,
Yes.
or the decision on some vibes you get,
Yes.
or some kind of an aura
So
that
true.
individual brings to the table, sometimes could be missed, if you're completely 100% virtual.
Absolutely.
So these things we are trying. I'm not saying, we've cracked it all, but these are conscious steps that people come a lot more, being there in person.
Yes. Wonderful.
It's a brilliant point that she said. I really love the term nudges. See, it is not just COVID. We see it in our children, right? The social collaboration dimension is changing rapidly world over,
Yeah.
right? So how do you really, and people are not interested. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
20 years back, a HR manager could come and talk me English for 2 hours. I would have given the time. I don't think today a 25-year-old will be willing to give the 2 hours to a HR business partner.
Yeah.
He or she will say, come on, come to the point, right? In 5 minutes,
Sure.
he or she is going to ask that. We see that all the time. So you need to be very ingenious in the way you nudge and socially get people to collaborate. So I really loved some of the examples that Priti gave. And I think organizations need to really understand that what was soft earlier is possibly mainstream now.
Yes.
From a 360-degree perspective of
Yes.
how you are nudging employees. And technology, I mean, it's quite fascinating how at SAP and SuccessFactors, we are trying to really get into the psychology of people hence, in how these nudges can be more effective.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
How are these softer aspects? How do you really collaborate socially better? How do you bring them out of their shell much before they switch off?
Right.
Because the moment they switch off, you have lost them.
Absolutely.
Right? So Preeti's challenge today is possibly manifold, in my view, as a HR leader, possibly than a CHRO of 2 decades back, for example, right? When it was an IR, ER kind of world. So these nudges and how you really, in a very subtle manner, evolve employees to really drive these collaborative aspects, to me, is becoming possibly the game changer. People are all good. I mean, fundamentally, I find that the skills and competencies and ability of people have evolved to a lot more maturity. India as a country,
Sure.
for example, our people, what we saw as skill and talent 20 years back to now has scaled phenomenally. But has our productivity evolved to the same extent? The answer is no. And you can't just blame organizational structures for it. There are these social aspects or some of these softer aspects which is also impacting productivity, in my view.
I mean, just to build on what he said, today you actually have to engineer certain conversations, which was like very normal, right? You found people chatting over cafeteria in the lunch breaks, and that sometimes you would want to control that too much of it is happening. Today you are actually nudging people that, step out for lunches together, catch up on coffee, conversations. So you actually are doing something which maybe many of us, like he rightly said, many years back took it for granted, and sometimes you also found it as a nuisance, if it was happening too much. Today, I think you are wanting it to happen very consciously.
Wow. Yeah.
And those connections or conversations or whatever you may call them, I think are also requiring people to be trained for it.
Yes.
Like today, I'm consciously training managers how to do slow conversations because you're in such a rush, right? And you're so transactional, this escalation, that revenue, that quarter to quarter you're living by, and you are a listed company, you have your own, stakes. So, can you just keep that 30 minutes or 45 minutes where you have to actually train them, because it is so natural for them to jump into, okay, what happened to that? So can you just keep that? And the people are also a little conscious when you say them, it's just a catch up. they're like, why am I being called for
Yeah,
this conversation?
scrutinized.
Absolutely.
So they're asking offline to some other people, why is this happening? And we're saying, no, it's just a catch up, just a check in. So people are also not able to swallow it or
Yes,
digest
so
it or come
true.
to terms with it, because it is actually, while we don't want it to be orchestrated, it is requiring a very conscious orchestration for people to slow down, pause, connect, because otherwise it's a moving train. People are getting off stations, and you're always having a kind of a revolving door, at 2 years, 3 years, people are just, because there's just no anchor to hold you back, because it's more
Yes.
about my loyalty to my to my skill or my capability or my employability, then to this ecosystem I
Yeah.
belong to or I work to. And that, in my view, requires a very conscious effort in every organization, maybe more aggravated for people-driven organizations, whether it is the IT or the services organizations, maybe a little less, which is manufacturing. I'm not saying it doesn't need there, but maybe little less.
Yeah.
Here it is all about the bunch of people who could make or break your customer situation,
Absolutely.
or derail you, or probably create that aha moment for you at the customer place.
Yeah, wonderful. Wow, truly fascinating, because we've come full circle, I think,
Sure.
from where we started off. And of course, human intervention and having that balance is so key here.
Yes.
James, before we wrap up, though, I will ask you a quick question. If you could sort of look into your crystal ball and see 3 to 5 years in the future, HR department function, of course, is thriving. And what would you say are some of the key tools and some of the key tech that you think is going to really excel and accelerate the transformation?
I think the big game changer in my view is inclusive talent supply chains.
Okay, yes.
That how technology is going to really drive that balance there is possibly where the biggest problem for organizations lies today, in my view.
Yeah.
And that harnesses productivity, that harnesses revenue growth, better profitability, all of that.
True. Yeah, wonderful. Priti, any thoughts on that?
I would say build more empathy while you embrace technology.
Yes, wonderful. What a great note to end this conversation. James, Priti, thank you so much. It's been really wonderful to understand, of course, what the future of HR is going to look like, all this wonderful, exciting, emerging tech, but ultimately the human touch, which is also very, very integral to the entire process, how it all comes together. Thank you for sharing all your insights, your examples so candidly. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, on that note, that's all we have for you in this episode of ETHR and SAP Present Voice of Leadership, FutureScape HR, where technology powers business success. Well, the message is clear that tech in HR isn't the future, it's the now. And those leaders who harness it today will shape tomorrow's success. From the entire team, many thanks for watching, and see you next time.